Welcome, everybody. My name is John Walker. I work in the office of the CISO, and today for our webinar, this is what you need to know to prepare for a secure ServiceNow instance. To start, I just want to put this up on screen. This is our safe harbor notice for any forward-looking statements. Essentially, the long and short of this is, you could hear some roadmap items. There's not really any in here, but we put this up there just in case, right? But if you do hear roadmap items of capabilities that may be coming in the future, please do not make purchasing decisions based on that information because that roadmap could change. Again, we're not really going to be discussing any roadmap items today, but we just like to put that up front for housekeeping purposes. Thanks for joining. My name is, again, John Walker or Jonathan Walker. I work in customer security and trust, and more specifically in our office of the CISO. I've been in the cybersecurity domain for the last 25 years. I've been at ServiceNow since 2016, where I started as a solution consultant for our SecOps product, which was very new at the time. And within the last 2 years, I transitioned over into the office of the CISO, where my job on a day-to-day basis is to engage customers and talk, platform security. All right, the same things we're going to be talking about today. To start, right, quote by Gartner, some data from Gartner, through 2025, more than 99% of cloud breaches will be traced back to preventable misconfigurations or mistakes by end users, right? So today, what we want to do is walk you through some of the things that are available to you in the ServiceNow platform to make sure that you properly configure all the security settings to make sure that you as a customer are not one of these folks that gets breached. And so the learning outcomes for today, we want you to know more about how to secure your ServiceNow instance. We want you to understand where you are in your ServiceNow security journey. We're going to talk a lot about crawl, walk, run, right, and what that looks like. And we want you to understand the resources available to you. We have a ton of resources available to you as customers to make sure that you can configure your instance securely and get you documentation on how we are securing the infrastructure from a ServiceNow perspective and keeping that part safe and secure. So if you're very, very new to ServiceNow and you don't know what a ServiceNow instance is, I'll just give you a quick description here, right? So what is a ServiceNow instance? A ServiceNow instance is, right, when you log into your ServiceNow prod environment, you're logging in over at least TLS 1.2, maybe TLS 1.3, a secure encrypted connection. And when you're doing that, you're using app nodes, there's a database in that dedicated prod environment. And when we serve that up to you, right, that app node and that database is serving up what you see on screen via your web browser, and that is your ServiceNow instance, right? A ServiceNow instance is a copy of the ServiceNow platform in the cloud that's given to each customer. It's a collection of applications, databases, libraries, and virtual machines that work together to provide specific services to businesses. Each instance is independent, configurable, and not shared with other customers. So essentially, right, some cloud services have one giant database and you have a slice of that database, and then you're accessing your slice and you're restricted with upgrades and things like that. But that's not true with ServiceNow. So every customer has their own unique separate database, your own unique app nodes. And so there's never any customer data commingling. There's never a restriction on when or how you upgrade. And so that's essentially what a ServiceNow instance is. From a physical security perspective, right, we can think about this in two ways. First, on the right is the co-location data center. So as a customer, you have two live instances replicating in real time between two different geo-separated data centers, right? And you can see from a physical security perspective, the co-location data centers on the right are providing environmental controls and redundant power. There's the 24/7 on-site security monitoring via CCTV and video recordings. they're tracking access and visitors into the entire data center, and they're auditing all the access controls again across the entire data center. Now, within those data centers, ServiceNow has our own dedicated cage space, right? And so from that perspective, we, ServiceNow, is responsible for all equipment owned and managed within that cage. We have cage level biometric access controls and cage level monitoring for everybody going in and out. And everybody going in and out is a ServiceNow employee, right? So a ton of physical security, and this is part of the shared responsibility model. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. And so here's a map of all of our paired cloud data centers across the globe, right? So just a simple map of our data centers around the world. Each customer, when they sign a contract, they agree to a specific data center region that their instances will reside in. So again, you have two live instances, one in each data center, replicating in real time. So North America or EMEA, for instance, are two separate regions, right? So when a customer signs a contract, a North American customer most likely is going to, in their contract, say, I want to stay in the North American region. And their data and their instance will never reside in European data centers or South American data centers or Australian data centers, and vice versa, right? An Australian customer would never want their data, or most likely would not want their data residing in North America. And so their instances will always stay paired in the Australian data centers, right? And this is how it works around the world. So just know that we have a global footprint to support all of our customers across the globe and all of their data residency needs. And so one thing we talk about as an organization is ServiceNow as one platform and one data model with consistent controls, right? And what that means is no matter what module you're using within ServiceNow, if you just started, most likely you're on the ITSM or IT Service Management module where you're, tracking all of your IT assets within the CMDB, or maybe you've been with us a little longer, or you wanted to start off running and you were doing ITSM and ITOM, IT Operations Management, or you added SecOps, Security and Risk, or HRSD for Human Resources. All of these modules benefit from the same security controls, right? Because it is one platform, it's one data model. So when you turn on one of these extra applications, it's just spinning up an extra table space within your ServiceNow instance to support that application. It's not some bolt-on module that's separate on some other server that has a connection and you have to secure that thing separately. That's not how it works, right? One platform, one data model. And so all of these controls we have in place enable you to keep all of these different pieces of the Now platform secure, right? So up in the top left, secure application development, our secure software development lifecycle. So everything, all of the code we're writing goes through a rigorous process to make sure that it's secure. Next, encryption and key management, right? There's a number of different pieces to encryption within the platform, from securing your data at rest, right? Full volume level encryption to field encryptions, encrypting specific fields. We'll talk a little bit about this as we move forward, but that's all there for you. Audit and monitoring, right? So every single thing that happens within your ServiceNow instance is there for you in the event or audit logs and available to you to view in your instance or to export and get off into your SIM, which most customers are doing, right? Authentication and identity. So we give you a number of different mechanisms to log in or control login to your ServiceNow instance, right? So multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, Active Directory or LDAP, and then advanced pieces like adaptive authentication, where you can create login or authentication contexts restricting only specific devices or only specific IP ranges, or there's a number of different things you can do there with adaptive authentication. So making sure that only the right people are logging into your instance, and then from a authorization perspective, only the right people getting to only the data that they need within your instance, right? Uh, and then down in the bottom left, security partners. So our partners are creating a number of great applications out there that we validate that are available to you on the ServiceNow store. So please check those out. And then here in the platform security controls, there's a number of different things you can see there. I'm not going to read through all of them, but antivirus, script analyzer, these are things that we give you out of the box that are available to you. And we'll talk a little bit more in this webinar about some of those. And then finally, at the very bottom, ServiceNow adheres to a number of different regulatory frameworks globally, depending on where you are. Obviously, ISO 27001 is across the globe, right? But IRAP, ASD IRAP is Australia, FedRAMP High is US government, DoD IL5 is US government as well. And so just know that we're doing our due diligence and doing our third-party attestations to make sure that we comply with these regulatory frameworks in their local geos. So next we have a poll question up. It's going to come up in 1 second here, but this first poll question is right now, right? What is your level of confidence in securing a ServiceNow instance? Are you extremely confident? Are you somewhat confident? Neutral? Not very confident? Or I have no idea where to begin? We have nobody so far at I have no idea, which is great. Um, a ton of folks at somewhat confident or neutral, which is good, and a decent amount at extremely confident. So this is better than I thought it would be. This is great. My colleague Joe Pizzo on the last one, I watched his video, and he had a few folks down there with I have no idea. And so our the point of today is to get you from where you are now to hopefully maybe one more up, right? So if you're at neutral, hopefully we get you to somewhat confident. If you're at somewhat confident, we'll get you to extremely confident. But so this is good. Most folks, looks like roughly 72% are in the neutral to somewhat confident, and 14% are in extremely confident. So that's pretty good. All right, so we're going to end the poll, and we are going to move on to the next slide. So security is definitely a journey, right? Not just for ServiceNow, but in general, right? Enterprise cybersecurity is a journey. And for ServiceNow, we're going to talk today in this webinar about crawl, walk, run, right? And so first, we'll talk about crawl and the resources available to you that ServiceNow provides for you to be able to secure your instance. And we're going to talk about security contact information. So you as a customer, making sure that you have a security contact available that you provide to us, that if something happens, we're able to reach out to them. And then, software updates. Every piece of software has security updates and application updates, and we want to make sure that you're getting your updates in a timely manner. So that's the crawl piece, and we'll continue to talk about that. So here, no matter who you are, right, we're here to help you. So these are some resources for documentation available to you as customers and partners, right? So on the very left, the trust at ServiceNow.com, the trust site, this is available essentially without a login. It's publicly available, and so any prospect can go there and look at white papers, right, or information on privacy and GDPR compliance and other industry resources just publicly available, right? Then a little more secure is when we go, or I should say a lot more secure is when we go over to the Trust Center or the Core Compliance Portal. So this is for current ServiceNow customers, although there is a way our account teams, if you're just a pure prospect, not currently a customer, and you really need access to some of the documentation and compliance documentation in there, we can get you temporary access to this. And so this is where you get information like certifications and attestations. So our SOC 2 Type 2 reports, our certificate ISO 27001, all the ISOs, right? Security advisories and updates we're going to publish there. So critical information for our customers is there on the Core Compliance Portal, and that is just a super, super powerful resource. And we it's self-service, right? So we make sure that you can get all the information you need right there at your fingertips, and so that's super powerful. Please be aware of that. And then finally, if you're a ServiceNow partner, you should be going to the ServiceNow Partner Portal. A ton of the same resources that are in our Core Compliance Portal are available for you there. Our ServiceNow Assurance Pack for partners, tons of white papers, the same compliance information, SOC 2 Type 2, GDPR, all these type of things, and pen testing documents for our most recent pen tests are there for you as well. And so I'm going to pause here real quick. And if anybody wants to take a screenshot here so they can use these QR codes later to access some of these resources, we have on the left the Core Compliance Portal and the link to be pulled up there when you scan that QR code. Security best practices. We'll talk a little bit more about this specific resource moving forward. And then security contacts, right? And that's a support KB showing you how to input your security contacts in your ServiceNow instance. So the core compliance portal, I talked about this previously. I'm going to pound it again and reiterate it. This is a self-serve documentation portal to support your audit and assessment requirements as a customer, right? And address those regulatory requirements. So you as a customer doing business with ServiceNow or doing business with any other provider, we are a third-party company to you. And so you need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to secure ourselves, which in turn makes sure that your data is secure. And so we provide you all the documentation that you really could ever need there in the core compliance portal, right? All our certification and attestations, our SOC 1 Type 2, our SOC 2 Type 2 reports, all of our internal InfoSec policies and standard operating procedures are in there. Data center certifications. So you as a customer, we talked about it previously, you're in two data centers, right, in your region. Could be Cyrus One, it could be Equinix data center. We have all of their certifications in our core compliance portal for your consumption. And then easy, SIG, standardized SIG or CAIQ pre-filled vendor questionnaires are there for you as well in that core compliance portal. So very, very powerful. Security best practice guide. So there's a knowledge base article there. It's an easy to use guide on the main security considerations for your ServiceNow instance. It's available to you as a knowledge base article. And so please definitely make sure you check that out. It's huge as far as kind of securing your instance past just the documentation of what we have in the core compliance portal. This is a best practice guide of how to understand how to secure your instance. So patching and upgrading, right? Huge topic. Every piece of software is going to need to be patched and upgraded, right? And ServiceNow is no different. And so we have release cycles for our large upgrades, right? And our instances, must undergo regular patching to maintain security and performance. So we help ensure that your platform software is kept up to date, and you can take advantage of our automated patching service to assist with this. And so typically there are 2 major version updates per year. And but just note that patching, and there are other off-cycle patches that come out specifically for security related patches and vulnerabilities that we want you to be aware of. So keep an eye on that. Security contacts, right? So this is the first part of you as a customer kind of doing your piece to make sure that there is a person that we can contact in case there is some sort of security event, right? And so the security contact cannot be the same as your ServiceNow admin in your support portal, right? So we recommend at least 2 different information security personnel are authorized by your organization to discuss security related information events with ServiceNow. We recommend we have the ability to quickly reach out to those business owners and leadership as needed. Those people have a familiarity and understanding of ServiceNow as a service and how their organization or your organization is utilizing ServiceNow, right? So when we're talking to them, we're not just blindsiding them with, hey, we're ServiceNow, there's a security incident, and they have no idea what we're talking about. We want them to be aware of the types of data that are in their ServiceNow instance, and that they are willing to accept security related email and phone calls from ServiceNow and the security team, right? And so when you input their information in there, you can get away with in that email field if you have a distro list, right, for your infosec team at your company, you can definitely put that there, and maybe that's even a better option, right? So instead of just putting two single contacts in there, you have a distro list. So now contact, when we reach out, there's 10, 12, 20 people seeing that email that comes through from ServiceNow versus just one person. So that's also an option. So that was the crawl piece. Let's talk about run, or I'm sorry, let's talk about walk, right? So the next phase, a more advanced phase there. So in the walk part of our journey, we're going to talk about shared security responsibilities. We're going to talk about Instance Security Center, which is a great application. And we're going to talk about logging, authentication and authorization, and finally, email security. So the shared responsibility model, right? This sets the foundation for us as a SaaS provider and you as a customer, and then also our co-location data centers and what each persona is responsible for. And so if we look here at the three columns, co-location data centers on the left, ServiceNow in the middle, customer on, I'm sorry, that was opposite. Co-location data center on the right, ServiceNow in the middle, customer on the left. There's areas of responsibility that we're all responsible for, right? And so if I had to group these into just three broad categories, and you can see there's definitely overlap, but I just like to talk about this in three broad categories. Co-location data centers are largely responsible for the physical and environmental controls, and that's what they're for, right? We talked about earlier the physical controls for the data center at large, and there is some overlap. ServiceNow is responsible for that cage security, right? And so definitely overlap. But when I talk about what ServiceNow is responsible for, I talk largely about the broad category of just the infrastructure and securing the infrastructure, right? So everything from the networking piece to the operating systems to the databases to the code base. We talked about the secure software development lifecycle, penetration testing, vulnerability management, everything that goes into securing the backend piece so we can serve up to you your ServiceNow instance, right? Which we talked about is that unique database and that app node. And so when we hand that to you, then you as a customer, again, just with a wide, large category, just a general categorization, you as a customer are responsible for authentication and authorization into your ServiceNow instance, right? So making sure you understand who is logging into your instance, what data is going into your instance, and making sure that the people that need to access that data are getting proper access. And the people that don't need access to that data, even though they're logging into your instance, maybe they don't need access to a specific subset of data, like in the human resources module, right? So again, just a very large categorization there, but that's essentially how it works. And so within your ServiceNow instance, we talk about security controls in three concepts: invisibles, configurables, and enhanceables. So invisibles are things that you as a customer are never going to have to worry about. This is business continuity and disaster recovery, the physical and environmental controls, infrastructure management, vulnerability and patch management, and our certifications and attestations, right? We're handling all of those for you, and then we provide you all the documentation on what we've done with that in the core compliance portal. Configurables are the things that you as a customer need to configure in your ServiceNow instance. Again, largely authentication and authorization, restricting access to your ServiceNow instance, restricting access within your ServiceNow instance to the right data for the right people. There's some privacy considerations there. Logging and monitoring, right? We give you, there's events and system logs happening. You can view those in the ServiceNow instance, or you can export them off into your SIM. Instance hardening, we'll talk about that when we get into Security Center. And then there are some encryption pieces happening within your instance. And then also on the enhanceable side, there's more encryption pieces that we'll talk about when we get to our Vault offering here. We'll talk about a little bit of that, but just know that enhanceables are like a subscription piece where you subscribe to advanced security pieces within your ServiceNow instance: zero trust, real-time log export service, code signing, encryption, data privacy and secret management. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to our Vault piece later in the slide deck. And so, again, we want to make sure that we are keeping your ServiceNow instance and you're helping keeping your ServiceNow instance safe and secure against any of these, malicious attacks, right? Malware or malicious files, unauthorized people accessing your data, or any type of code injection, cross-site scripting, anything like that. We want to make sure that your ServiceNow instance is secure, and you, as a customer, will play a role in that for sure. So, next poll question. Uh, what is your experience with ServiceNow Security Center? So, ServiceNow Security Center, we're going to get into it after this poll. It is a phenomenal application right within your ServiceNow instance to be able to uh, look at security hardening metrics and things like that. But have you ever heard of it? You've never heard of it, or I have heard of it but never used it, and I use it regularly. So we'll leave this up for just a second. The smallest amount of responders are saying never heard of it at 6%. That is fantastic. A little bit under half saying I've heard of it but have never used it, and half are saying I use it regularly. This is great. Again, my colleague Joe Pizzo, he did the previous version of this webinar. He is our security center guy. He's out there every day. Preaching the benefits of Security Center, and so it is great to see that we have a ton of folks out there using it. He would be so happy to hear that. Okay, so I'm going to end this poll now, and we're going to move on and talk about Security Center. Okay. All right, so ServiceNow Security Center, right? Keeping your instances hardened against threats and aligning with best practices and getting notified of suspicious behavior, right? There's a number of different capabilities within Security Center. Number one, security hardening, right? Understanding how your instance is hardened in those configurations and conforming to best practices. Security metrics, right? We give you 50 plus security metrics to identify potential security threats or insecure behaviors. A security scanner enables admins to scan against a set of security checks or misconfigurations and allows you to create your own custom checks as well. And then security learning is a great place to learn all about the different secure configurations within ServiceNow, how to use Security Center, and so on and so forth. And then best practices for adoption. We give you guidance there on your crawl, walk, run journey and how to apply these best practices within your instance. And so in your filter navigator, you can see up in the top right there, there's a screenshot of exactly how you would get to Security Center. And essentially it's just that, right? Type in Security Center in your filter navigator and click in there, and you'll see all these different pieces for you that are available. And so I will pause here real quick. Again, if you want to take a screenshot of this for those QR codes that you can use later and look at, documentation, now learning training. There's a video library there, and/or best practices. These are taking you out to various resources. Could be a doc site. It could be, excuse me, Now Learning, or just ServiceNow.com, where our security best practices information repository is. Okay. Oh, we talked about this previously, but yeah, how to get there and take your first step on your Security Center journey. If you haven't before, just go into your filter navigator, type in Security Center, and you will just get a single click in there, and then you're off to the races. So logging and monitoring, right? So we'll think about this in two ways. On the right is ServiceNow Managed, right? So think about that in terms of the shared responsibility model, the infrastructure, all the operating system logs, the database logs, all the networking nodes, and everything that goes into providing you your instance. We are getting those logs, monitoring those logs with our global security operations center, and making sure that the infrastructure is secure and your instance is always available, and we're meeting capacity management demands and things like that, right? So we're monitoring everything all the time to make sure that your instance is always available and secure. From a customer perspective on the left, Again, all those transaction and event logs are within your instance, and they are available to you through the GUI to just view within your ServiceNow instance, or you can export them off via a syslog Pro via your mid server, or we'll talk about in future slides using real time the Kafka streaming service with the Hermes messaging bus via your Vault subscription. If you wanted to subscribe in the log export service, there's a way to do it. It's a little more efficient. Again, real time versus exporting them down off of your ServiceNow instance through a mid server and then back up to your SIM. But just know the long and short of it is all your transaction and event logs are always available to you within the instance or to export off. You can also just an API call. You can go to those audit tables and pull those off via API as well. So there's a few ways to do it. So customer managed access control, right? We talked about a large part of the customer responsibility is authentication and authorization, making sure that only the users that you want to have access to your ServiceNow instance have access, and then based on the data that's in the different applications and table spaces, only the right users have access to that data. So we give you mechanisms to make sure that you can do this in a secure fashion. So on the left, identification and authentication. We have a number of different mechanisms for authentication, right? So using LDAP or Active Directory, SAML 2.0, digest authentication, OpenID, SCIM, or local database authentication as well, right? And remember, we've got multi-factor authentication for you as well. So that's all built in out of the box to make sure that you are keeping the authentication aspect of your ServiceNow instance as secure as possible. And then the authorization aspect, who's getting access to what data in your instance. That's where you have, again, all built in out of the box security controls like role-based access control, role inheritance, access control engine allowing for multi-level ACL rule sets at everything from the field level to the table space, and to there's advanced features like security attributes where you can control access to specific records. And so just a ton of different mechanisms and controls for you to be able to keep things safe and secure. Adaptive authentication. So this is another out-of-the-box mechanism for you that allows you to evaluate authentication requests and either deny or approve access based on a policy that you define with your adaptive authentication application, right? So you can say essentially a user, is logging in from a specific IP address range, and we are going to either allow or deny access based on that specific set of conditions, right? And so there's a number of different policies that you can set up, but please do check into adaptive authentication, and it is a powerful mechanism for controlling authentication into your ServiceNow instance. And email security, right? So email is one of the most common ways for attackers to try to compromise systems. And so we want to reduce our attack surface as much as possible. So two options for your own email environment and linking that to ServiceNow in your instance is using DKIM, and customers can implement that using your own domain, right? And so there's DKIM and there's also DMARC policies you can use to keep those secure, as well as ServiceNow has built-in email features for spam and malware scanning. You can restrict specific domains for incoming emails and make sure that you're only allowing the domains that you want to be able to send emails into your instance. And you can also restrict file types, right? So configuring your instance to only accept and process approved attachment types, essentially, when they come through via email. That's huge, right? And so finally, getting into the final stretch of our webinar today, the run phase, right? So we've moved past crawl, we've moved past walk, and now we're more advanced. We want to start running and getting into some more complex things with our security journey with ServiceNow. And so we have some advanced security features we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the subscription piece with Vault, ServiceNow Vault. And then we're going to talk about, our penetration testing, as well as your ability as a customer to run your own penetration tests, right? So data classification. Privacy requirements, right, are becoming a focus for all sectors and all customers, right? And we have an out-of-the-box free feature to help. And so you will hear a lot about security features in here and other presentations from our customer security and trust team, and we like to emphasize new capabilities, and privacy is no different. We love to harp on privacy, right? And so data classification is your ability to go into your instance and do essentially exactly what it sounds like: classify data, right? And you think about this in terms of sensitive data within the platform. It could be PII, right? It could be PHI. It could be you may have your own data classification mechanisms that you want to use for data within your instance. But just know that we give you the ability, if you know where the data is, you can classify it and make sure that you know where your sensitive data is. You classify it, and then you can use that data classification in your authorization mechanisms to say, okay, only certain users have access to confidential data. Only certain users or groups or roles have access to personal identifiable information. And so it's a very, very powerful piece, right? So please do look for that. It is available to you in the ServiceNow store. It's an out-of-the-box application. Just go ahead, search for it, and install it, and you're off to the races with data classification. So encryption options, right? So there's a number of different encryption options for you as a customer. There are encryption pieces happening in the background that you're probably not even, aware of, or you don't need to be aware of. The encrypting at, TLS 1.2 for all your data in transit. That's just happening automatically. Any password you save in your instance for like ITOM discovery is automatically encrypted, right? And so there's things happening behind the scenes that you don't even ever have to worry about. But there are other pieces that customers want to possibly use, and so we can talk about these here, right? So edge encryption is encrypting or tokenizing specific fields in table spaces in your ServiceNow platform, and it's decrypted only with the key that you have in your infrastructure. So all of those pieces that you encrypt with edge encryption are encrypted within the ServiceNow instance, and they're only unencrypted when they travel over the network onto your infrastructure, and they're encrypted there. So, oops, that thing fast forwarded for me. But just know that is an option for you. Field encryption. So encrypting a specific field in a form or table and granting only access to specific users or roles to that field, right? So again, think about your data classification. You have very sensitive information. Human resources is a perfect example of this. You have social security numbers in your human resources module. And so maybe I have 10 people in my organization that use the human resources module, but I only want 2 of them to be able to see the social security numbers of my employees. And so field encryption can encrypt those fields, and then we can say, okay, only those 2 users can see it. Everyone else sees the social security numbers as hashed out, encrypted fields, but my 2 users see those fields in their raw format. So that's field encryption. Cloud encryption, or what we used to call database encryption, is essentially encrypting the entire volume, so your entire database at rest is encrypted. The use case there is if somehow, some way, sorry, this thing just keeps fast forwarding on me for no reason. If somehow, some way, ServiceNow were to lose or mishandle, lose track of a hard drive that your database resides on, if somebody were to get that database, of course it's encrypted, so they don't have the key, your data is safe. Now, we have so many controls in place that is highly unlikely that ever happens, but some highly regulated industries, it's just a straight requirement that they have their data at rest encrypted, and so we offer that to you. And full disk encryption, very much the same use case there, theft of hard drives, but that is a little bit different. Whereas cloud encryption is software-based encryption, full disk encryption is self-encrypting hard drives, and there's another cost associated with that. But if you're interested in any of these, just please talk to your account team, and they can walk you through what that would look like for you. So ServiceNow Vault, this is our subscription piece to advanced security features that allow you to essentially mature in some of the areas that you would be responsible for in the shared responsibility model as a customer, right? So, platform encryption, we talked about that just now. That includes field encryption enterprise and cloud encryption. So, being able to encrypt specific fields with sensitive information over and above 5, right? Every customer has the ability at some level to do field encryption, but when you get to more advanced use cases and encrypting a lot of data, field encryption enterprise is a subscription piece within the platform encryption bundle, as well as cloud encryption. So data at rest. Your database for commercial customers is not out of the box encrypted at rest. So cloud encryption is that volume level encryption. So talk to your account team if you need that piece. Data privacy, we talked about data classification that is available for you out of the box, but data privacy also gives you data discovery to be able to automatically find, or in an automated fashion, I should say, find sensitive information using out of the box patterns that it can scour your instance and find that sensitive information and then classify it in an automated fashion. So that's very powerful. And then data anonymization on top of that. So if you want to anonymize sensitive data and scrub it, uh, there's that piece for you in the data privacy module as well. Zero trust access is essentially adaptive authentication. We talked about that. It's just more advanced, more features over and above your out of the box adaptive authentication. So please, there's plenty of information out there on the internet to read about that capability for zero trust access. Secrets management is managing, passwords for your ITOM discovery out there on your mid server, right? And then code signing, making sure to sign any code coming from your ServiceNow instance with a digital signature and before it goes over to your mid server so that there is file integrity, right? So it's basically making sure that there's no man in the middle attack when you're sending let's say probes or scripts to your mid server to run against your infrastructure, making sure that that code base is signed and secure and that there was no man in the middle altering it and running malicious probes or scripts against your infrastructure via your mid server. Again, please talk to your account team about ServiceNow Vault. They can get you most likely in touch with us, and we'll talk to you about more specifics and get a little bit deeper. Penetration testing, right? So you as a customer here on the right, you can see every customer is permitted to at least one um, pen test per calendar year. And so we obviously give you that option. We want you to feel that you can do that. But it is something that needs to be coordinated, right? We don't want you just pounding against your instance with your pen test or your vulnerability scanner or whatever it might be. So please do coordinate that with support. There's a whole process, and we will make sure to guide you through that process. And then third-party pen tests. So we, as ServiceNow, are doing our due diligence annually and with really with every single release to make sure that we're doing a pen test on every all the code on every release, and then finally third-party pen test annually for all of our infrastructure and all of that. And so that is all of those results are available for you on our core compliance portal. So please check that out. Okay, another poll question. So where do you feel you are in your journey with ServiceNow? I think we did this before, right? Were we in the crawl, walk, run? And so we want to get your feedback. Where do you feel like you're at now? So I'm seeing the poll results come through. Looks like a ton are at the walk phase. That's great, right? So nobody really coming in at run, but everybody, almost 75% saying they're in the walk phase, a few, a little less than 20% in the crawl phase. So we're maturing, right? We're maturing. So that's good. I'm going to end that poll now. And we're going to get into the last leg of our sprint here in our webinar. So, right, this is everything we talked about today. So One key resource I'd like to highlight again is Instance Security Center, which provides a centralized location for monitoring and managing your instance security. This tool is so powerful and allows you to view information in real time about your instance's security status, configure your security settings, and access valuable resources and recommendations to enhance your security posture. So please, please, please definitely check out Security Center. It is a super powerful tool. And I also encourage you to continue exploring the available resources and implementing best practices for your ServiceNow instance and security. With careful attention to security and the support of ServiceNow's platform, you can create a secure and productive environment for your team and your organization. Right? Our vision here at ServiceNow is to make it easy for you to expose the right data for the right reasons to the right people every time and to be able to prove it, right? And so these are the pillars. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. These are the pillars that map closely to security and privacy standards like the NIST cybersecurity framework. So our goal is to help organizations make granular decisions about who sees what and what they can access securely, and ensure data is handled correctly and protected, and to make sure personal identifiable data is always kept confidential. We want to always make sure that we are able to prove it, right? And so that's Security Center can play a huge, huge role in that. All right, and another poll question. So after this presentation, we are pretty much at the end here. After this presentation, what is the likelihood you will use Security Center moving forward? Again, my colleague, just a phenomenal security mind, Joe Pizzo. He is our champion for Security Center. He wants to see those numbers as high as possible. And we're getting a lot of I need to understand more, over 50%. 43%, I can't wait to use Security Center. So that's good. Nobody not likely to use it. So that's really what we want, right? We want folks curious. So please definitely look up for that documentation. Just go ahead and install it in your instance and start tinkering, see what's in there. But I'm glad we see at least 50%. I can't wait to use Security Center. So that's fantastic. I'm going to end the poll now. And we're going to get to these last few slides. So call to action, right? Number one, identify where you are in your Security Center journey. I think a lot of us know, right, based on that poll. A few in the crawl phase, understanding where to find security documentation is critical. So there's a ton of resources out there for you. A lot of folks at walk, most of the folks are at the walk phase, understanding the security responsibilities and the partnership between you as a customer and ServiceNow as your SaaS provider. And being able to use the out of the box security features to reduce your instance attack surface. And hopefully, as we mature in the next few months, we can get into the run phase where we're using these advanced security features to meet our advanced requirements. So securing your instance there in the middle, make sure to review the shared responsibility model and know what you as a customer is responsible for. Again, just as a broad categorization, authentication and authorization, that's the biggest piece. Who is getting into your instance and what data do they have access to? Just make sure that you have a solid understanding of that. There's a Security Center video for you to check out, and then please do install and utilize Security Center. So leveraging available resources, all the product documentation, we have links for you available. This presentation comes out as a PDF after the fact, after this webinar. And so we have a ton of links for you. Also those QR codes to scan. All that documentation is there. Even quick Googling it's pretty easy to find. Okay, so final poll question. This is the one that we did before. So let's go back to the question we asked in the beginning. What was your level of confidence, right? Where are we now? So we had a few folks, and I don't think we had anybody at, I have no idea where to begin. We had a lot of folks in neutral and somewhat confident, right? That's what made up most of our population out there, with a few being not very confident. I'm now seeing 0% and not very confident, a ton of folks at somewhat confident at 73%, and 10% at extremely confident. Ooh, 20% at extremely confident. Great. So this it makes me happy, right? That this was useful for some folks. and everybody feels a little more confident than they did at the beginning of this webinar. Key takeaways here. Security Center, we're going to keep pounding it. Please, 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 if you're not in there today, install it, get in there, start rooting around and tinkering. There's a ton of great information for you there. 2, improve your security posture by using those best practices we outlined for you in Security Center and those built-in security recommendations, hardening recommendations for those configurations. Remember, 99% of breaches happen for cloud happen because of a misconfiguration. So we want to make sure that you are configuring your instance properly, and we give you all the guidance you could ever want on how to do that. Now, it is up to you. Maybe you have a policy that says I can't toggle this security setting in ServiceNow, but maybe you have a mitigating control in place that you don't need to toggle that security setting. Those are all conversations you're going to have internally with your security team, but just know that we give you all the guidance you could ever want on how to lock down your ServiceNow instance as secure as possible. We even give you a gauge of, you're 100% locked down, and all of your settings are secure to, you're at 50%. We usually recommend somewhere in the 80 to 95% range, right? Nobody really ever gets to 100%, but if you can get above 80%, that's pretty darn good, we say. And then finally, number 3 there, system admins can leverage detailed learning resources to gain more control over their ServiceNow instance. Again, a ton of resources out there for you. All of those QR codes and links we're going to give you, as well as just quick Google searches of some of the topics we gave you today, is going to head you in the right direction. So thanks again for your time, everybody. I'm glad you all benefited from this and people are feeling more comfortable with their journey now and that they can secure their ServiceNow instance. So we appreciate your time.